Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how did you know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Didn't expect that to pop up. Hello, Dan. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm good. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Dan.
Can't wait. Tonight's going to be a good one.
Tonight is going to be a good one.
I put all my props up, so that's why I keep looking off to the side. I've got my tablet. I've got pages open. This is good.
This is going to be a really good one. Before we dive in, guys, if you have not already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the show. You can find all the links down below wherever you are viewing this or in the banner down below. So tonight's episode, we did a little bit different. We are going to be doing spiritual leader Teal Swan. And diving into her human design. And I was really intrigued about this design because she is a reflector. So I'm going to let you, Dan, explain exactly what a reflector is, but that's what drew me to this. And
yeah, me too. And so I've actually done more studying on Teal than I've done on any of them so far, almost. Just going back and watching. I mean, for me, when I'm studying somebody, I know their design. I can see it before me. And then I watch them closely. I watch into their eyes and where they're answering and where they become rigid. We're looking at a 4-6 profile here. And that's one of the places I wish to start with Teal. But before I actually get going, do we want to say anything up front about this particular individual? There's something different about Teal in as much as, you know, she's not what we've done on Wednesday nights so far, I guess.
I will say this. I knew about Teal when I first had my awakening about 5 years ago. I came across her and I didn't resonate quite with her. There was something about her. I've seen her kind of grow her account. And through this research, I've learned a lot about her background. There are some similarities that I can say from personal experience, some that I still question. There seems to be a lot of controversy around her. Some of what she says, I can see her side, some I can see the other side. So I'm really
keeps happening with me. That's exactly what keeps happening with me.
Black and white. What I do feel is that I watched the Deep End twice.
Yep. Yeah, I saw it once. I saw the whole series.
Yeah, the one thing that I do question, and I will say this before we dive in, coming from a coaching background and doing similar things, I can recognize the marketing. I can recognize the building your brand. A lot of the stuff like getting onto the news networks, you've got to promote yourself to do that. And one of the things that I saw that was conflicting, and even if Teal is watching this, is that you got to be careful what you say. if you, at the beginning of the deep end, there are times when you said you did not want to be in the coaching industry. Well, if you didn't want to be in the coaching industry, why did you promote your services? So it's the conflicting things that I would like to see through the design, because I know she's reflecting a lot back to us, but that could be her acting and her not self theme.
There's a lot of that. So inside of just the reflector itself. So I mean, the overall keynote of a reflector is, hey Jen, can you switch sides so that you're on my left?
I can try to.
I'll just keep talking. So
it popped this up like this. I know it threw me off because we're usually on the other side.
I know. And my camera's wrong, so I'm looking shifty here. So I'm going to switch my camera a little bit to be over you.
Thank you guys for joining us. If you're now joining us, drop a comment down below. Tell us where you're from and if you have any questions or feedback.
Okay, that's cool. I feel better. So a reflector in general, it's funny the things that can throw me off. I feel sort of savanty about all of that. So the thing about a reflector is the overall keynote, of course, they're going to reflect back what is the health, and never mind the health, the general milieu of the society around them, their family structure. She came from a family of 4 with 1 brother. The goings-ons in general, all of the stuff that I heard her talk about is things about her early days, and all the abuse is things that I find entirely hard to believe. And so where does the kid come up with all of that? And it comes up from a million different places. She's open everywhere. If you're a reflector, you're open everywhere. It's as important as anybody. I got to stop saying it's more important than ever, because all of them are more important than ever. It's important that a reflector get yourself read so you can recognize how all this openness is working on you. Because every month, every center is going to get defined. And let's see how many centers does she have that have no activation whatsoever. There's 2. So that means...
You want me to pop her up on the screen?
Sure. So if you notice, there's 2 open centers. The open ego, the little triangle sort of jogged off to the right in the middle. Yep. And the open ajna up at the top. That means all of her centers and all of the stuff in here that is definition is going to be activated by the moon on the other side. The other side of her incarnation cross, 12, 11, and 36 and 6. This is the incarnation cross of Eden. Okay, and look at her variables, the arrows. They're all pointed to the right except for 1.
Yeah.
So she's got the one that's pointed to the left is all about being active in your environment. So there she is running around, active in her environment. All the rest is just a sponge. Where am I? What the hell? And since that's technically the question of the reflector, sort of what the heck? Meaning, what's my milieu? Who are you? Who are they? What the hell? Because their job is to reflect all of it back, and that's why their aura must be resistant. It's resistant. If a generator aura is open and enveloping, and a projector's aura is penetrating, so there's one at a time, and it's focused, it's sort of going into the other, and the manifestor aura can have shields up and be fully resistant. It can be closed. Sorry, no, door's not open. They don't have that. They are closest to be a manifestor of any of the 4 types. The 2 closest cousins would be the reflector and the manifestor. They would be closest to each other because they both have a way to resist and hold the other away. And so, but it's resistant in sampling. They have to keep sampling. And then that moon is clicking around every 28 and a half days. It goes around and it fills in the gate on the other end of 16 coming off of her throat. And suddenly she's talented. The other end of gate 10 coming off of her identity, or gate 1. And suddenly she is making a contribution. The other end of all of these gates, the other end of gate 45. 45 is off of the throat center. The other end of that is gate 21. And suddenly she is in control. And the rest of the time, she concerns herself with what control she doesn't have. When I say the rest of the time, I mean, it can happen. Only she'll know how much of that it is but it'll always pop up. The not self themes of all the ends of the gates. Look at each gate as like a hook, and that hook is onto the world around it. Now, if it can't hook onto something, if it's not sure what it's hooking onto, and then that moon comes around and ignites it on the other end, part of her incarnation cross is gate 36 coming off of her solar plex center, the top of it, gate 36. It's red, it's unconscious. Her whole unconscious being, the side of her that is her body's design, in that duality, that part of us that we must make peace with because it keeps giving us the information we need through its chemistry, that consciousness, that awareness inside our body of her incarnation cross is 36-6. That's crisis and conflict. Crisis and conflict.
Crisis. That's what she's going through right now.
She's always been going through crisis and conflict. This cross of Eden is all about it's about what happens and what will the person live out when it's as if for them as if they've just come out of Eden. That's and imagine, okay,
just like they've come out of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, Jen, you and I, okay, we're having fun. We're in Eden. Hi, Jen, we're in Eden. All of a sudden, plop, we're on the world. You and I are going to be like, I'm hungry. What do we eat? Really soon, we're going to be like, shit, I got to kill something because I'm hungry. It's raining. Where are we going to stay? You know, and everything else. Oh, my God, I have to go to the bathroom. You know, that's messy. Oh, I'm tired. I sleep. I'm pretty sure Eden was the absence of most of that, you know, mundane earthly toil. So that's what this incarnation cross is to be looked like. It's the life that gets lived out as if you just stepped out of Eden. What does that life look like? And every arm of this cross. So look at the top. You see 12-4, 11-4 on the right. And you see 36-6 and 6-6 on the left. That makes her, those are the four arms of the incarnation cross. The cross goes like this on the wheel. Chook, chook. So so wherever these are on the wheel, obviously they'll make what looks like a cross. And so 36 and 6 is crisis and conflict. 4 and 12 and 11, 12-4 and 11-4 are all about the teacher and the guru and the prophet.
Her
And
being the teacher and the guru.
Yes. So she would have come into this world saying, I just left Eden. Let me tell you what it's like. And she would have.
Oh my God, that's what she's doing.
Yeah. Well, so in that sense, she's living out her incarnation cross.
Well, this is why I like doing these, because people can realize that she, in some ways, she's allowing her design, what she came down here to do, she's doing.
Quite literally is what it appears. Filtered through this reflector body and this reflector way, that coming in can feel terribly confusing. It can feel terribly confusing. So when there's no activations off of a center, sometimes that center can just sort of act dormantly.
So what is an activation off of a center?
Well, it would be just a gate, any gate. So only her ego and her head center have no activations, no gates hanging off of them.
No. Okay. So they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
So when you have no activation, sometimes you can not even notice what that's like. Not even knowing how to value yourself, you can totally not know what that's like until suddenly you're up against it. Not knowing what to think, you can totally not even know what that's like until suddenly you're up against it out in the world. So in kid terms or in teenage terms, you can put that in terms of, you know, days could go by when not knowing what to think is not even an issue. But her parents wouldn't have been able to point any of this out to her. So when she came up against not knowing what to think, what happens? She's a fourth line personality. That fourth line, oh God, I have notes. I never write notes. That fourth line personality, we're looking at rigid, fixedness, externalizing your fixed trip, externalizing it in a way that has a yearning to become influential. 12th line, externalizing it in a way that's articulate, that wants to empower. It's in the individual circuitry, so it wants to empower the other. If I can't empower the other, maybe I'll scare them, and then I'm empowered.
Yeah,
See,
she expressed a lot of that on the documentary.
well, the documentary, I can't give a lot of credence fully to the documentary, because that documentary is written by a not self person whose bias shows up the second a lens, an angle is picked.
Well,
Although
yes, I agree with you on that.
But I can take the various things that the real humans in that said. So there's a juxtaposition there.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the way that she presented herself, that's how she presented it. I can't no. When I researched, I followed the money on the documentary, and that documentary was basically funded by
not her.
No, it's not her, but it's a company that she could have said no to, okay, that is supported by ABC and Disney. So it's interesting that she is claiming to be a satanic ritual abuse victim, and she goes and does a documentary with a company that is funded by ABC and Disney. So that was a red flag for me as well.
You know, I never even thought about that.
You can choose who does this. She agreed on some level.
Yeah, but that fourth line, Jen, is an opportunist. So the opportunity outweighed any dangers that were in it. If she even put all that together, I assume she did, or someone in her circle would have. I mean, the chances of not are pretty low that she would have not put that together. But me, myself, I could have easily missed that. I know that as a fact. I probably would find out along the way, but, you know.
I got something to say on that one real quick. Is that she's a spiritual new earth leader. If you are a spiritual new earth leader, you should be very mindful of who you spend your time with, where your money goes, regardless of if the opportunity. If somebody comes to you and offers you $1 million and you accept it, that's on you. So that's all that I'm saying on that.
Yeah, it's all true. And that's the lessons that get learned when you come out of Eden, because you come out a dummy. As the story goes, as the fable goes, you come out with like, oops. Knock, knock, knock. Can I go back in? Maybe. Can you leave the door open? How about that? Leave it unlocked. You know, but it doesn't work that way.
I was just going to make a comment about the Cross of Eden, because that's actually my incarnation cross also, but the numbers are a little bit switched. So I can totally see her expressing her incarnation cross, because it's all about like being kicked out of Eden, trying to find and create a new Eden, finding what works and makes you happy, and sharing it out with the other so that they can be happy too. You know, like that's how I've understood the Cross of Eden. And so it's all about like sharing our personal experiences and to like help and improve other people. So I can totally see how she has done that. But it almost kind of seems though like she is expressing a lot of like the not self themes of the open centers. So she's kind of going about fulfilling her carnation cross in kind of like a not self kind of unhealthy way. Because I watched some of the documentary too, and it seems like she has the not self theme of the open ajna, like
trying to be certain,
wanting to be certain, like arguing.
Savannah, that's why we started with totally open center, so I could draw the distinction. Her ajna has 2 hanging gates off of it, both of them collective, meaning they've got to be shared. And something very interesting you pointed out when we spoke on the phone a little bit ago about that 17.
Yes, that 17 feels pressure to defend their opinions, right?
Yep.
So and you see that
fear of challenge.
Yes.
Yep. Sudden fear of challenge. It's unconscious in an open center. So it's not walking around fear of challenge. It's at first, especially as a kid, sudden fear of challenge.
So like comes on just out of the blue.
Out of the blue. So what do? It's like when the monster attacks, what do? You got to fight back right now. Right now.
Because
She's
isn't
conscious or unconscious of this?
That's on. She's unconscious of this, although she's learned it as a trait in her life, so she's been dealing with it. And others have pointed it out for her. But it's unconscious. So for her, she experiences it as if it comes out of a tunnel, meaning it's not there and suddenly, boom, my body just gave me this chemistry and now I'm confronting the challenge. So there's no time.
Okay, so just so I have this right, not with her, but anybody that has this, they're really, the only challenging they're confronting is themselves.
In large part, for sure, because there is no challenge.
Right.
Open there.
It's just a chemical response coming up.
It's right. There is no challenge. There's an awareness that you're now trying to process as a personality walking around in a meat suit, walking around in a vehicle.
Because the Ajna is an awareness center, and every awareness center has, sorry, I just had to think come up. It has a fear attached to it, right? Yep. So the fear of gate 17 and gate 17 that she has is the fear that her opinions will be challenged and not being able to defend them. That's right, Dan? It's a fear.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which
and
I feel
being able to be certain. These open ashnas, all these open centers will have their not self themes. And so one of them obviously is fear of not being certain. Trying to be certain, concerning yourself with certainty.
Yeah. I also noticed that gate 45 we were talking about earlier that's attached to the throat. I have that one too. But it's about they like to be in control, right? And like managing their personal things. So if people try to step in and try and control, it can like really upset them. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And it's black for her. The line is. So
she's aware of that. She's aware of that, and it shows up, and all month long it keeps showing up for her throughout her whole life as it shows up for a couple hours a month.
Can you explain the 28-day cycle? I find it interesting that I just entered my experiment with the 28-day cycle, and we got two.
Jennifer, yes. Jennifer, you did something so intuitively forecasting of doing this show.
I know I did. I noticed that today.
And it was like the timing was total serendipity, except it was your spleen was working overtime. It was just pointing the way, penetrating beneath the surface. So
and I was listening. And ever since I entered my 28-day experiment, we have 2 reflectors, which is we know 3 that I have met, and they're like 1% of the population. So I found it very interesting. I took notice of that, Dan. But Can you explain as far as the reflector is, what is the 28-day? Do they have to wait 28 days to do a response?
Yes. So everything that goes by becomes a 28-day decision-making process, because they won't know fully how they feel about it. They can keep checking in. They'll check in a day later. How do I feel? But by the end of 28 days, if they checked in all 28 of them, they'll have 28 different snapshots by which to blend it together into a new knowing and a new awareness for them. If they're watching this closely, that's how their awareness keeps going. The best thing a reflector can do is chart the cycle of the moon, so they see exactly when their gates go into harmony and resonance with the corresponding gate on the other side. That they should do that so they can see it, and they should journal. I want everyone to journal, but I myself don't journal, so I'm a hypocrite. But totally. But
there are several different ways to journal.
I don't feel like it.
You can, guys. We have a new group on Facebook and some other stuff. If you want to join, we'll go over journaling. Love to journal different ways, but I agree with you. It's good to document.
Especially for a reflector, because when they go back, their awareness will get so much keen information that's almost like data points. When you and I, or those of us with definition, when we journal, they'll be like data points, but we'll get this picture largely of, oh, I see where this is going. Went down the wrong hole. Those guys will get clear pictures moment to moment. What happened at each given moment. So, I mean, they're real data points.
It's interesting to know that she did a whole workshop called The Mirror off of her design, but nowhere did I see she incorporate anything about her design in the healing or any of that workshop. I don't know. I didn't go. I can't say for sure if it was in there.
Well,
But
everything I've seen about her,
nothing.
she didn't either. She didn't incorporate anything about human design other than to mention it. And at one point, she did say something about you're all designed a certain way. I heard her say those words. So that was a keynote. But she did say she was a reflector inside of one of her interviews. And so, of course, and her birth info was available. So, add all that up. And, you know, you've got somebody here who's very much reflecting back. What is it that they're living around? You know, I just keep coming back to that.
Dan, what's the not self theme of a reflector, like, or the strategy of a reflector to wait on the moon cycle, right?
Yep, but disappointment, and flesh that out, man, because that's just a one word keynote. The disappointment that can be so profound. Think about when you didn't get your toy you wanted at Christmas time. A disappointment. Think about when you thought they loved you and they didn't. Disappointment. You know, so really flesh this word out to be, they are the keepers of the viewpoint of the planet. And it's not like they're the keeper specifically, like I've decided I'm now the master of the viewpoint of the planet. No, it's their energy gives us back what becomes the keepers of the viewpoint of the health of our entire world. So disappointment can be profound. It can be very profound. So the disappointment when one friend started cutting could have been so profoundly disappointed that it may not have been a copycat thing at all. It may have been, oh my God, if you started cutting and that's my reflection, I'm not disappointed too. So I'm going to start cutting. It could have been a little bit of both. It could have been a strategic thing that the fourth line wants to do, because the fourth line strategically is trying to basically make friends so it can gain a network. So ultimately it can become influential. It just wants to be influential because in its influentialness, it can talk and externalize, and the other will listen to what this incarnation cross says it's here to do, be a teacher.
I watched a little interview with one of Teal's like best friends that she grew up with, and I guess that friend was struggling with like an eating disorder and cutting and suicidal and very depressed. And I just thought it was interesting that as soon as her friend, what was her name? Diane, started doing those things, Teal started doing them also. And she even said in the interview, she would like mirror her behavior. And so I just thought that was so crazy that she was like keynoting.
Yes.
That what Teal was doing is we're mirroring and whatever reflector does. And so that was really interesting to me.
Well, we keynote ourselves all the time. Jennifer, you're going to say something?
Yes. Is that so on a reflector, because she has so many open centers, like she's all open, she's constantly trying to fill those in
it's a little bit shade of different. For you and I and Savannah, we would constantly be trying to fill in our open centers.
Okay.
For them, their primary genetic love affair is with the moon. The moon is filling them in for her more so than anything else. That's why a reflector is the design of somebody, a reflector mom. A reflector mom's very often going to have kids, plenty of them. And guess what? When those kids run out because they got old, they'll have others, because they're made to be inside of a community. 10, 11, 12 people, that's good. That's healthy for a reflector. And the health of that community is going to be the problem with a reflector being in charge of their community that they're in, is that they become the thing that reverberates back the reflection of what they don't want to see in the first place.
But also count reflectors, since they are so open.
Jen, I saw that.
Where we are open, we get off track more, right? The not self themes can come out and we can get off track. And it's where we're supposed to go to school, is the open white center.
Absolutely.
So, but can reflector, like, how much of their behavior is their own versus what they're reflecting back to people? Like, does that make sense?
It's a full mix. Go ahead, Jen.
No, that's what I want to know.
It's a full mixture. It is fully a mixture, because as the moon comes along, moon is mother, along with mother is mother. Mother and father are mother also, but moon is mother to the reflector. So as the moon comes along, that basically that's more important than what the other that's around them did. Now, the other that's around them will totally condition the crap out of them while the moon isn't there. So it really is a mixed bag. But don't forget, they're resistant. So you can't just have them. Just like the manifestor. You can't just have them. No one owns a manifestor. You know, Savannah, you and I, we can get owned pretty quick and have to figure out what that means to us. But it's hard. It's hard to own a manifestor. It's hard to own a reflector. Because
but aren't they supposed to be more fluid though? Like their personality and their kind of behavior is supposed to be more fluid because it is always changing with like the transits or who they're around, right? Their abilities is supposed to be more fluid, but sometimes if they're not following the strategy and authority of a reflector, sometimes they can become very rigid. Is that right?
Yep. Fully. And that rigidness just gets further compounded by the right facing arrows that wish they were left facing arrows and strategic. I need to be rigid to protect my openness. Can be compounded further by that fourth line personality, which is rigid all by itself. That fourth line, if you've got a fourth line personality, you've got a fixed trip. You're a fixed way. You externalize the same fixed things. To bend you can be to break you. Whereas you take a third line, you bend them, they break and heal and break and heal. You know, all the other lines break and heal. Fourth lines, you snap them and they're not very effective for quite a while. And that and the group she put herself in would have been hard to manage.
And then the sixth line of her profile, right? The keynote of that is the role model, or that's like the high expression, right? But the low expression would be the hypocrite, right?
So she's constantly waffling between those things. The poor girl is constantly waffling between those things as she lives out her existence of knowing she just wants to find the right soulmate. The sixth line unconsciously just wants its soulmate. But it starts out the first half of its life, first 28, 30 years of its life, just making and breaking bonds.
Yes, she's 11 relationships. I think she's been married 7 times.
And then after that period of time, suddenly, that's a good number. And then suddenly after that, they start to recognize, wait a minute, I want to be optimistic. But it's almost like the baggage of the first 30 years of that life that was spent as a third line left them with too much baggage in order to do that with. They can easily get caught up in that, oh my God, but I have too much baggage. And then boom, rigidity comes in. And boom, you're right, the fear of challenge. And that gate 11 off of her Ajna center is the fear of darkness, the darkening of the light. My ideas aren't being heard. Or my ideas are being heard, and now I have the light of the light. So she's going between this binary. And that 12th gate, I lean on this 12th gate so much because it's her driving force. That's the sun. And the sun says, you know, I am the person who can spot the need for the cessation of the problem, and now normal things can resume. I can continue teaching. I have so much to say. They're always waiting for the opportunity to externalize their fixed trip and become influential with it. And as soon as the low expression of that comes along, when I say the low expression, we need our low expression so we can bounce off them and become high again. I mean, where do you bounce off the trampoline? The lowest part to get high, you know, same bungee cord. I mean, you name it. Analogies are many, but with her, you know, that 12th, the lower expression of that she would be bouncing off of to gain her wisdom is, I feel like the voice in the wilderness that's not heard. What do you mean you don't hear me? I'm going to go kill myself. What do you mean you're not hearing me? What do you mean you haven't fully heard me and you're not accepting what I'm saying? I'm going to have this fantastic story. I'm going to create a fantastic story as a child where my brain isn't fully developed and I can justify anything.
I feel like I can totally see that gate 11 because it's called the gate of ideas, right? And the fear of that gate is fear that your ideas will be rejected, and also this pressure to share your ideas.
Yes.
So I can totally see how she's done that, where people have rejected her ideas and she doesn't like it. It's almost like this fear of rejection. So I can kind of see that play out with some of the audios I watched.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And how similar are these gates 11 and gate 17 and their fears? So she's got two cannons there, double cannons pumping that stuff out for her that she's constantly trying to make sense of. You know what I'm saying? So, but in her moments of clarity, she appears to deliver people, whether it be, listen, we all know, I hate this whole thing with, oh, that's the placebo effect. No, dummy. Placebo effect is the same thing as reality, okay? It just means that whatever you gave them in the moment, you empowered them to get well. The placebo effect really points to, hey, your medicine is bullshit, you know, because I can get fixed by a placebo. A sugar pill fixed me. So, well, you know, take your freaking whatever it is and, you know, shove it, because the placebo effect is real is what I'm getting at. It's a real thing. Don't call it placebo effect, call it reality.
I noticed in her design Earth, she has gate 6, the gate of conflict. So would that, because I know our whatever's in our Earth is like what grounds us.
Yeah.
So is it almost like she feels very grounded in herself when there's conflict? Is that how you would explain it?
Absolutely. And when you're
We lost your picture.
Huh? Oh, I must have touched something. Hang on. I'll be back. Hi, chat.
We can hear you.
No, I'm coming.
But I feel like I totally saw that in her. It's almost like conflict does not scare her at all. It's almost like she thrives on like triggering people and creating conflict.
Yeah.
Well, so I feel like that totally fits that gate. The gate of conflict 6 is in her design Earth. Yeah.
Fear forces. Well, this is what this is. Gate 6, the peacemaker, as she comes into her own. At first, it's the allegiance with anybody and wanting to mate. The allegiance with anybody and wanting to mate. That's what the first 30s. That's what the first 30 years of 28 or so years of her life is. But that wanting to mate ends up being the role models seek for their soulmate, and their soulmate, of course, is first within, and then shared without. So we are meant to bond. We are here to commune. So we're here to have two soulmates. The one that's inside of us first. I love you, but I love me more. That soulmate. And then the second one, the one you share with. And soulmates can be anything, but generally boy and girl, you know.
I love how you said that.
Mates.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
On the lunar cycles, does it matter what phase the moon is in?
Of course.
Okay, so like, is it full moon to full moon, full moon to new moon,
there's two versions of that, Jen. So yeah, so there's two notes to take on that. Again, that's why reading for a reflector is really you got to read for them twice, really.
Well, I was wondering, it would really help her out, if in any way that if she does all these things to cycle her life around her design.
Right, exactly. No, my guess is that early on she found out she was a reflector and basically did what a good fourth line does. They hear what they want to hear and they take away the stuff that fits them, and they get ready to externalize that because it fits into their fixed trip, and they ditch the stuff that doesn't feel relevant to them. That's not wrong. That's them. It can go terribly wrong if you skip critical details, but that's what they're here to find out. So a lot of that was going on, from an early age. She found out she was a reflector, and I can't tell that she dug into it any further.
I can't either.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, maybe a little, but not much.
She grabbed the name and found out she was a mirror and ran with it and marketed it and sold it as a package.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the same thing, because it seems like she expresses a lot of the not self themes of the open centers. So if she had dived deep into her design, she would be aware of that and not be doing some of the things she's doing.
Absolutely. Here's one. How about that open sacral, the largest conditioner on the planet, but in a way subtle enough to not seem like it. So open sacral. What happens with that open sacral? You guys both have an open sacral. It's that whole not knowing when enough is enough. And look at, she's got 3 gates off of that sacral, not to mention 3 more gates pointing at it. Just a lot of action right at that sacral. And so fixed patterns, not knowing when enough is enough about her fixed patterns being perturbed. Gate 14, that's 5. That was number 5. Gate 14, pushing up at the G center, wanting to push a material direction, needing a material direction, feeling abundant about a material direction, only to realize it's in an open center, so I don't feel abundant about a material direction. What does it do? Doesn't know when enough is enough about acquiring a material direction. And that material direction towards beauty. What does she constantly say? She does constantly say, I wish to pour my love onto the world. That would make it more beautiful. You know,
I noticed she also has gate 55, that passion gate, the gate of spirit.
God,
Gate 55 is in her design.
Dude, let's look at 55. You know, some people have these every line memorized. I'm jealous about that, man. Hang on.
Because doesn't that have like gate 55 is all about like romance and like sexuality? Isn't that
Romantic love, intimate sexuality, intimacy generally, being able to feel and be empowered by what you're about to say and what you're about to hear, and that it meets up with the spirit of your existence. 55 is a deep, deep gate. It's there constantly being the governor. It's off the solar plex at the bottom of the solar plex, Jen. It's you have that in your body graph.
Me?
It's constantly being about trying to measure and be the barometer for the spirit of myself. And so that's an awareness. That's an awareness. I'm aware that my spirit feels full. I'm aware that my spirit's it's filling up. It's filling up. Let's invite this new girl in who's going to get married to Blake. It's filling up with her. It's okay. And then later the spirit goes low and it's unfilled with her. And suddenly she doesn't want that girl that married Blake. I forgot her name, the German girl. And she's not sure if that one's, necessarily going to be good for them to be around. 55 line 5 is growth. So when it's conditioned in her, she just wants growth. Yep. This unusual ability in a position of power to seemingly accept advice and transform it innovatively. The gift of positioning power to put themselves in the best position. And its lower expression is an emotional openness where the spirit is constantly at risk of conditioning. Now, she would have been constantly at risk for conditioning because that's what openness does. And in a reflector, I always use Michael Jackson. Look at what he reflected back. He reflected back a sick family. Ultimately, let me change that word sick. He reflected back a family that was like, there was a lot going on, too much for him.
There was a lot going on.
The family that wasn't, that very much all too often wasn't for him. Think about other things that a reflector has inherent in them. They've got an open G center. So an open G center says, I'm looking for love and direction. I'm trying to find love and direction. And it also says, hey, if I'm not in the right place, I'm not with the right people. Or if I'm not with the right people, I'm not in the right place. So anytime someone felt like not the right person, she would want to cast them out of her place in hopes that would fuel the love of her direction.
I also know she has that fighter gate on the root. She actually has two, both a design and her personality, black and red. That fighter, it's a gate 38.
Yep, it's defined twice.
Mm-hmm. So, and I've totally seen that in her, like in some of the videos I watched of her. She is this feisty, gonna fight for what she, believes in and her purpose. So
they're both in a first line, and they're both in her Jupiter. That basically this is where her law gets sort of concretized. And by the way, that gate 12 of her in the fourth line shows up twice in her design. It's also in her Venus, which helps establish the mores of the values of which she'll then go by, which later get concretized into law inside of gate 38-1, which is in Jupiter. So gate 12, number 4 in her Venus, the mores, the things that she would then come up with that would become the values that she would be portraying in her life are the values she's expressing as the driving force of the sun in her body graph, gate 12, line 4. Again, the prophet, the person who's here to be influentially heard and then teach whatever it is that they become aware of to enlighten the other and empower the other to speak. She's here to empower the other to have the grace to live an empowered life. That's what gate 12-4 is supposed to be for, until it starts to live out the feeling of being the voice in the wilderness that never gets heard, or isn't heard enough, or isn't heard correctly.
I was just going to say that. Heard correctly.
Heard correctly. And now there's a challenge. Not heard correctly. Back to 11 and 17. Challenge. You're not taking my ideas. Rigidness. Gate, fourth line, rigidness. Reflector aura that would get rigid when it suddenly meets obstacles it can't know, because its rigidness is, sorry, I rigidly resist. I resist. So, I mean, they could be John Connor of what was that? All those Terminator movies. We are the resistance. That that would be something you could say about the aura of a reflector.
Oh, Dan, I also noticed she has 2 in gate 10, which they say gate 10 is about the love of self and also about empowering the other, right? I know people say the low expression of gate 10 can be narcissism. Is that true, Dan?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Now, narcissism is just another way of saying, hey, I love myself in a way.
But I mean, that'd be like the low expression of gate 10 would be like narcissism, loving yourself a little too much, right? But I know like the high expression.
Yeah, a little too much. Yeah, I get you.
I need to read my exes, man. He was textbook. If it was love of self, it was extreme love of self.
She was her gate 10 line 3 was living out a life of this futile rejection of standards that was based on what she thought was a just awareness. And what she thought was a just awareness was the awareness of what she wanted to teach and what she wanted to show and how she wanted to empower the other and empower herself in the process and seek opportunity. And like we've been pointing out already, seek opportunity to drive what the sacral would do. The sacral wants to drive a focused and concentrated, transcendent, intimate, valued direction with fixed patterns that is focused and concentrated on the details that bring her to material success.
So she's driven by material success, basically.
There's a part of her that is driven. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nope. It's when it goes wrong is when it loses sight of the empowerment of the other. So where is Teal's balancing act in the empowerment of the other? Where is that? Where is that for you, Teal? I don't know, but she'll know.
Yep, that is I tagged her in the post, so when we sent her a message.
Oh, I wrote her twice, and I wrote her just an hour before the episode. You guys want to hear what I said to her? Because she's on Instagram, and so I figured there's messages. I said, well, we go live in an hour. I'd urge you to get your chart read again, preferably by someone who can hold space and who can synthesize the explanations of how you're designed. So I'm not sure what's going to come out because I always read in the moment. And if you feel like it, can you confirm your time of 7:42 a.m.? Typical Dan. Yeah.
I noticed she also has connected to the spleen that gate. Oh, I can't remember what it's, gate 18, where they like to challenge authority.
Yeah, I was reading about that. Look at where it is on her design side.
Oh, it's in her moon, so that's her inner world.
Yes, her inner world is driven for this. It's a focus. It becomes a focus, and along with gate 60, trying to transcend limitation, these two are in resonance with each other. It's the gate 18 line 2 will be the focus on correction. It'll be, let me read this. It feels like it's this recognition, the focus on the recognition that some things are spoiled irretrievably and the desire to not want to see that. It's second line, so it's a hermit. Oh, it's broken irretrievably. I'm a hermit again. Oh, I'm driven to externalize my transcendence of limitation. It's in a fifth line. That's the heretic. I'm driven to bring my heresy of the transcendence of my limitation and to show that it is not irreversibly broken. It's corrected. I'm driven to bring the correction of my transcendence of my limitation to you.
Can't gate 18 sometimes be kind of blunt and a little harsh?
Oh, yeah, blunt is crap. It's a challenge of authority. Yeah, absolutely. It can totally it can be incredibly blunt. Now think about it. In all those group sessions, at least in the documentary that was there, I assume much of that group existed, and I assume they were in the same place at the same time enough. Again, I tuned out when it came to camera angles. I tuned in when it came to the words, and I tuned into where it came to them, where they would cut. Because I know that during editing, cuts tell lies or truth or something in between.
I went off with what she said in the moment.
Huh? Yeah.
I went off with what she said in the moment and the energy and how she said it.
Me too. Because I noticed a lot of camera cuts, and I'm like, you're telling a story and you're putting a narrative into me, Mr. Cameraman, Mr. Editor, Mr. Filmmaker. So I tried to get that out of the way so I could listen, just like you said, Jen, just like you said. So that 18.2 and 60.5, this is her drive in life. I mean, that fifth line wants to be the general and the saint and the savior. She's driven to help others empower beyond their limitation. She's driven to empower herself beyond her limitation. She's driven, unfortunately, to recognize that she even has a limitation in the first place. Oops. You don't need to have, we're inherently limited. You know what I mean? You don't need to sit there recognizing it, but being in her moon, being a focus and a drive, chances are this would have drove her crazy every time one showed up. If you got in another planet, you can just sort of accept that. But if it's in your moon, you're driven towards it. So that would be the hatred of limitation. Fucking hate this. And she sort of acted that out. She's acted out. Yeah, many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, many times, and on different things that I watched and everything. I wouldn't, huh?
I was going to mention the open throat, right? The open throat, the not self theme is wanting attention, right? Talking too much to try and get attention, and they can also feel like they're not being heard. So I don't know if you guys feel like you saw that in some of the videos you watched or the documentary.
I did, especially when her talent and her authority was challenged. When her authority was challenged, Gate 45 always seemed to talk, I am entitled. I am entitled.
Yes.
That's what it says. I am entitled.
That's where I guess some people can get the spiritual narcissism. Yeah.
Very, very often they could. But if you have a Gate 45, that's not your freaking fault. What the 45 is responsible for teaching the tribe of the customs of the ways. Now, that can sound cultish. I got to teach the tribe the customs of our ways.
Well, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things that now that you've brought awareness. So if she is seeking materialistic things, that's her drive, her motivation mainly, that's a lot of money. So if we take money out of the equation, she would probably be in the search for possessions. So that can be like selfish, and money can corrupt people to a point. Sorry if y'all can hear my cats in the background.
No.
And then
those possessions can be people, Jen.
Yes, that too. There's a lot of things in here that you can see the.
If I were reading for Teal, I would ask her, do you feel like sometimes you possess the people? And I would wait to see if there was a delay in the answer, and I would wait to hear the body language on the other side, and then I would ask, are you sure of that answer?
Isn't also that Gate 45, it's in her, I can't tell what planet, is that Venus? Is that, or is it here to communicate, or what planet is it?
Communication, that's in her Mercury.
Okay.
So it's to express the foundation of what is communication, the foundation of what is Gate 45 as a form of communicating. Now, keep in mind, Gate 45 is this beautiful thing. It's called gathering together. It's here to gather together everything so that the tribe can be gathered. That's where they learn the most. And this is about canvassing. The ability to promote and develop the gathering together through the education of the uncommitted. A material direction lies in education. This is what she communicates. She communicates that her material direction lies in education. This is what she communicates.
That is what she does, right? She has these big courses and retreats, so that would make sense. Why?
Ask what the other expression of this is, Savannah.
Yeah, what is the other expression?
Yep. The overzealousness that turns canvassing into proselytization and tends to alienate rather than gather support. The drive for material that leads to aggressive education.
Oh, wow. Holy cow. That's so spot on. Oh, my gosh.
Now, if Teal thinks that's a bad thing, then she's missing the point. You know, that's a thing that she bounces up against in order to be aware again. We're constantly going into our lower expressions to gather back the thing. So the more that we're awake, the more we like spend a few minutes down there. You know, that's when, you know, Jen kicked me with an elbow. It's like, Dan, da, 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 da. And I'd realize, shoot, yep, you're right. No big deal. You know, that's good. If she becomes rigid and can't accept that little elbow to the side that says, dude, da 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 da, you know, that was sort of the low expression of that, you know, lighten that up a little. I could then see that if it were true, I could then see that and whatever. But in her rigidness, I noticed that she didn't take to that very well.
No.
People were, the documentary made it appear as if people were timid in her presence. And that to me is what can quickly go wrong when the reflector is the leader. The reflector as the leader is stuck reflecting back to the others what the others' fear is about her leadership. She's not the only one with a fear of what happens when the other is their leader. We all fear our leaders. We're designed to fear our leaders. We love our leaders when we love them, but there'll always be moments of, hey, did they just fall off the tracks? Because they're my leader, man. My whole life depends on what they just did. So we're always afraid that our leaders can go off the rails. That's why as children, we challenge our parents. What if our parents don't have the right leadership for me? What if it's not right? You know, so we challenge them and then we figure it out. But yes, this canvassing was the name of the line, and it's about canvassing and going to this one, going to this one, going to this one, going to I'm canvassing, I'm knocking on doors. That's what canvassing is, in order to teach and or over aggressive teaching that just wants to make the point no matter what. So I bet you there are times when she went overboard and times when she didn't. Now she can't come on and acknowledge, oh my God, I went too far on something. I don't know what it is. She'll know what it is. If she has no acknowledgments of I went too far, then that's rigidness, and that's her concerning herself with fearing she's not certain and won't be valued, and every other not self theme in this whole body graph, not the love in the right direction, proving the right material, not knowing when enough is enough with how much I'm going to focus on something. That's one of her. Yeah. Gate 9, not knowing, and it's defined twice in her. So she's got a lot of gate 9. She's got a lot of stuff going. How many gates does she have in total? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So with 18 gates, she's got a lot that's repeated here. She's going to have lots of doubles. Mm-hmm. The lower you get from 21 or 2, the more doubles you have. You know, because you still have to have 13 activations on either side. So if you've only shipped 15, you're going to have lots will be doubled up.
13 activations.
Huh?
Nothing.
Oh, so we had talked about that fighter, how it was in two different spots. I thought that was a good one. That was gate 38 and gate 38 line 1. It's both line 1 and it's both in her Jupiter where the law gets concretized. So I'm going to pull up 38 line 1 and let's see what this. So what's this fighter fighting for? What is the fight for? It's the struggle for purpose. I want to struggle. So all day long, every time Teal's life becomes a struggle, she's beckoning that struggle. She's designed to attract that struggle. Remember in the beginning, I said, look at all of these gates like hooks. Each one of them is a hook. She would constantly hook in the struggle. And without a gate 28 on the other side, not knowing what to struggle for, that hook's going to hook into someone, decide it doesn't know what to struggle for, and make up something to struggle for. Because she's supposed to be an ideas person that's a prophet. So She's always under pressure to make up shit. You know, in her wisdom, when she's being herself, what she makes up might be of, and apparently has been, of incredible value to so many. I think she shouldn't worry about who's detracting from her. Take better stock of what the hell's gone on so far and hone in the skills of what she seems to do well. She speaks good in the now.
Does she channel?
Yeah,
we all channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I noticed she has in her north nodes, they're both repeated gate 16, and that's enthusiasm, right, Dan? But then isn't there also gate 16 like a self inner criticism?
No, not so much. Gate 16 is just this wild enthusiasm that keeps showing up. Enthusiasm because it's identifying with something. I guess there would be an inner critique of it, because if it can't share its enthusiasm, it wonders what's wrong with itself. And so it'll adjust its trajectory so it can become influential to share its enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. This is a person who's been adjusting their course in order to fit the opportunity. The opportunist in this person that's seeking the opportunity for her influentialness in order to do what her incarnation cross has her here doing, or not, is that theme more than anything. The master novice is what she resonates with. Master novice, fourth lines will resonate with master novice. If she were a third line, she'd resonate with leader follower, but she's a fourth line. So that's master novice. And the presumption when there's master novice is that the master cares, and that the master wants the novice to supersede them. Ultimately, that the master will abdicate their mastery to the novice one day. That's the real master-novice relationship. There's an inherent love bond between master-novice. So notice her whole tribe back at the compound is that there has to be extreme love. The master-novice relationship has to have that. Think about it. I learned piano. My piano teacher that just made me learn scales. It's not a master-novice relationship between her. And then the next piano teacher came along, ex-Vietnam veteran, Timmy McDowell. He was the best. He even drove me from school to my piano lessons. He was my master. He could do no wrong. I loved Tim. Mm-hmm. I loved him, and he loved me back. Now, that love's not personal. I mean, it's personal to a degree, but I mean, it's easy to mistake that for romantic love and get confused amongst other things, in a workplace, in a relationship, in a thing. The master and the novice, it's a requirement on this plane. It's not good enough to just get it from a recording. You need to get it from the person when you have a master-novice relationship. You can't just listen to their podcast and get it. You have to get it from them. So everyone who's getting it from her in that way, they were on her trajectory. That wasn't really quite an accident. And gate 16 showing up twice and gate 9 showing up twice, that's part of the cross of planning. That's her trajectory in this life. Basically, she was hooked onto a trajectory that said, I'm going to focus on all the details and externalize that. And then after a while, I'm going to be enthusiastically talented about expressing the foundations of all those details that I figured out, that I focused on and tamed. So she tamed something. Is she a natural channeler? I assume in moments she channels just fine. I assume moments she fakes it.
Dan, I was also going to point out, her top head center is completely open, no gates attached. And I know they say
that's if you have a blessing for a channeler. That's a blessing for a channeler because they don't know what to think.
Okay, yes, I've heard that too. And then also, isn't it people who have open, they're always taking kind of ideas and stimulation from people who have a filled in head center. They don't come up really with their own ideas. They have to kind of listen to other people and then take and kind of make their own. Isn't that kind of how it works?
Constantly the flood and the pouring in of it from everywhere. So when we look at many of her high expressions, they're very well polished. When we look at what she pumps out as it relates to her videos. And I have to tell you, I watch some of her videos and I'm like, dang, good job, Teal. That was good. Pump that out into the world. But then if I go look back into the actual verbiage, likely I'll find lots of essentially plagiarism from all the old masters that she's re-put together and recombined into her own message. Now we're supposed to do that. We're always supposed to. How many times you have a quote because of another quote and you spun a new word into it and it becomes your quote, but you pump it out. How many times do we just plain copy the quote of another? It's like, it was so good. Henry Ford once said, Thomas Edison said, Ram Dass said.
Well, it could also come from the etheric.
Absolutely, Jen.
I came up with conscious creator before I even came across that word, and that was just in meditation, and then it was being used. So,
but Jen, you have a defined head center. Your factory is constantly on making these things for the rest of us, and add to that the program. The neutrino program is constantly pouring through us. Constantly, we have no choice. The neutrino ocean pouring off of our stars. This is all the science of it. We know that neutrino information is pouring through us. It exists. And as it pours through it, some of that neutrino information had poured through someone else previously. So we really are connected. And so she is within a fully open head center. I would say that pineal gland of hers is well tapped into the etheric field of the consciousness of the planet. Pick like an antenna of sorts. Like an antenna. And she did say she was big on certain healthy things, like make sure there's no what's the stuff that kills pineal gland. So I don't think she's got a lot of fluoride going through her.
No, she's awake on that.
Yep. So
but I also remember hearing that she worked with some therapists. I think her name was Barbara Snow, and she worked with
Snow. Yeah, I've been looking. Who was this Barbara Snow gal?
So she actually go ahead, Savannah.
You go, Jen. Mm-hmm.
She did a lot of helping of the clients that had sexual abuse out of the Mormon Church. I'm taking Teal with a grain of salt. I feel like she's a plant. I'll just say that. And there's a lot of things that I came across in my research, including the funding on our show, just that Drew and I do believe on some of her claims of what she did about the sexual abuse. That does not,
something happened.
Something happened. She's reflecting something back, and that's what intrigued me about her story. She is definitely reflecting something back where she's born, Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's close to someone's ranch. Disney, funding. Disney's ultimately the funder of the documentary.
Now that's just weird. Yeah, it's just weird.
Well, it's a lot. And the therapist that she went to was also helping the kids that were sexually abused out of the Mormon Church, which, Savannah, thank you for finding that podcast that I didn't get to finish listening to it, but, she was tied in with a lot of things that were tied in. So
no, absolutely. And so as it relates to the assumption, so she latches onto an assumption that it's all a past trauma. Everything is a past trauma. Mm-hmm. Now to me, that's a dangerous assumption. Because what trauma? And who cares about certain traumas? And we all know to sort of get past certain things. Having said that, the whole stuff stays in your unconscious. I guess it does certain things, but you know what? I'm not one to speak about trauma now that I think about it, because I didn't have a lot of trauma.
Not on this one. You can't. The trauma that she is claiming, Dan, you cannot say who cares.
You cannot say what?
You cannot say who cares. The trauma that she is claiming, that's a big deal. That is the world's secret of why we are in this fuckhole right now.
Yes, you have a point, Jen. I'm talking about the trauma she brings up in everyone else.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
That's what I was referring. The trauma that's in everyone else. I'd say there's probably value living through a lot of certain amounts of that stuff. There's going to be value in reliving certain things if you want to. But the thing is, if you're processing yourself according to your own awake design, that trauma doesn't mean much to your right now. It only is the past thens stealing away your nows. That's all trauma can do. Is it can be the past that keeps coming forward to steal away your now and take it away from you, which is a pretty shitty thing.
Could she be reflecting back the trauma of the clients she's working back with too?
Very much so.
I'm the reason I'm intrigued is because I did ask the question on Facebook, and it was like the post that I got most of the reactions back. It was like 160 something comments made. And as her design, I know that she is reflecting a lot back, and a lot of what she's reflecting back is not per se her, it goes deeper than that, and it's not pretty what's being reflected back, especially within the spiritual community. So
what she's reflecting back a lot of, I notice, is in this motivation that will resonate with the fourth line personality. It's called need. It's the motivation of the personality that thinks it needs stuff, and that fourth color resonates with fear. So suddenly it transfers into fear. I fear I don't have what I need. I need something to quell the fear. And the thing is, what need really is supposed to be as a motivation is need is supposed to be a glorious thing, because it's bringing in opportunities. As soon as you fulfill what it is you need or have what you need, you can then spread the opportunity of what your fourth line is supposed to do in the first place. Externalize the new opportunities. Externalize the new, and in her case, empower the other to share in that opportunity. But for her, so much of that empowerment, again, is the crisis and the conflict. The crisis and the conflict. She will always have crisis and conflict until she gets a big fat handle on the fact that she has a 3-part life cycle that she's smack in the middle of right now. Technically, the first 28 and a half years you spend getting all beat up, and then as soon as that's done, you're licking your wounds, trying to recover from some of that. And then finally, you're sort of objective about everything, and then you come off of the roof around age 50 and go out into the world as a living example of truly what is yourself. Rosalind Carter was a reflector. There was no end to the children she was willing to have with Jimmy Carter. That's just common. I've read for 3 reflectors so far, in just this past 8-9 months, 3 separate ones, that they all had a family. They all were loaded down with kids. It's just something that they'll do because they need to fill in that community, so they have something to reflect. That's why I take issue in a way with Teal being her own. I don't take issue with it, but Teal could investigate what's the scoop with me being the boss, as being the actual boss and the leader. I'm going to create dynamics that I'm then going to be reflecting back. Is that the best idea all the time? How about hand over the reins? I'm taking a break. I'm heading out of town for a day. I'm going to my room for 3 days, and I'll come back with a bunch of videos, maybe, or not. Let someone else take charge and see what they do. I'm not sure what balance to strike there.
Yeah, don't reflectors need time away? Isn't that really important for them, like alone time?
Absolutely.
Kind of like release everyone's energy and just kind of be with their own type
All open sacral beings need to get out of the sacral aura, because it doesn't matter. The two consistent things on the planet are the planet all put together is an emotional manifesting generator. When you add us all up, we're an emotional manifesting generator powder keg. The A, and so emotionality is always there. And B, sacral conditioning is universal. As soon as you have a group, even if no one in the group has a defined sacral, you're going to define it together. You'd be hard pressed to find any 3 people that don't define a sacral, ever. You'll be hard pressed to find 3 people that don't define a solar plex. You put those 2 things together, you're an emotional generator, generating that emotional wave up and down through hope and pain. And for her, my spirit is low. My intimacy needs to flare. My intimacy needs to close. My intimacy needs to flare. That's gate 6. My intimacy needs to close through the spirit of me, through the knowing that I don't have all the experience I want. There's a conflict. There's always a conflict looming. It's almost here. I can feel it until it's not, or until it gets created. There's every chance she created her own conflicts.
One thing I was watching the Mormon Stories the interview with still grew up with. And she was saying how that Barbara Snow lady, they do like a retrieval of memories, but a lot of times like it's like they're constantly trying to draw it out, and sometimes our imagination will step in and create like something that happened that didn't. And so not that I'm saying that is what happened with her, but I know some people have, since she has that open head center, she would probably be more like
incredibly susceptible to
yes,
suggestion.
yes, very, there you go. You said that perfectly.
If she, yeah. What's that, Jen?
Okay, Sheena replied earlier, you know, neurolinguistics programming, hypnotherapy, that leaves you open to programming to, you know, you're saying exactly what I feel is what happened. Not
being
that
a
I'm
reflector of the 4-6 profile on the cross of Eden leaves you very open to suggestion too.
okay.
Like incredibly. So that's a lot of openness, Jen, that she's open to all the way around. You know,
and then
that's an incredible amount.
I also heard they investigated some like the abuse that she said, and they said they didn't find anything. Not that I'm saying it could happen, it could have not happened, but a part of me wonders maybe if that Barbara Snow and her methods of like trying to get those repressed memories out. But a lot of times our mind is and our imagination is really powerful at creating something there that wasn't so part of, and I know she's starting to do that with her own clients, trying to pull out, which I think is kind of,
there's every possibility she's starting to rethink that process because of all of this.
yeah.
Well, she didn't have, you know, one of the things in my research that I thought was, you know, she was doing meditations where she was walking her clients through suicide to the end. And I think that's a very fine, you know, you got to be careful of doing that because you, as a spiritual leader on this side, especially if you're doing videos, you don't know the state of the person on the other end.
Right. I personally wouldn't mind walking someone through that exercise in a moment. Should I have been called in that moment, it would obviously feel correct. So I would start doing it. But the thing is, I would have an obvious bias and a slant clearly towards you want to live. You want to live. I have to walk through that whole exercise. They're convinced they want to kill themselves. Start walking through. It's like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Can you taste it? Can you taste the pills going down? All of that stuff that probably would happen, something like that. Can you taste feel it?
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get our video taken down, Dan.
Well, I'm just saying, if you went through all of that, the obvious bias was, doesn't it suck? Doesn't that, you don't want that? You know, if they're a generator, I'm going to ask her, do you want that? Oh yeah. Are you absolutely sure? You're not sure. That's a lie. You know, you're not sure.
Yeah. I also thought what was interesting is the incarnation cross of Eden. It's very mutative, right? Like that's the purpose behind it, is to mutate the collective. And that is totally what she's doing. Like, I feel like she's fulfilling her carnation cross, but maybe in a very not so healthy way, right? With some of her methods and with some of the things in her chart, and the not self theme is coming out. You can see that clearly in the documentary, but she's mutating the collective, and that's the whole purpose of like the cross of Eden. So
yeah, all true, all in all, I find somebody who I'm pretty sure made up a story about the extent of the abuse, somebody who had their traumas and certain abuses underneath all of that could have been like pretty nasty. Like maybe that whole thing is true in a microcosm over a weekend, but not over the course of all of time.
Well, this lady specializes in the abuse that was happening to the kids through the Mormon church. So
yeah, I would recommend everyone go to that Mormon Stories podcast where they interview Teal's best friend that she grew up with. Like that really opened my eyes a lot. So if you go to Mormon Stories and put in Teal, it will pop up and you can watch it. And I thought that was really.
I'm going to put it in the comments real quick.
Yeah, it was really good. I watched that whole thing, and she was just, I've read for so many Mormon mothers now. I've got a real sense of the upbringing of all of that, and I got a real sense that gal was basically saying what her experience was. She was just saying what her experience was. I saw a few moments of her own personal bias come through. I don't know her design, so I don't know what that is per se, but no big deal. Overall, she told what her experience was. She did a great job.
Yes, I put the link to that in the comments.
So do we want to take a vote? The episode said Teal, spiritual leader. What was the middle one?
Hold on.
It was like a question. Lost or
spiritual leader. I can't remember. I can't see it.
I got it. Is she a spiritual leader? Is she lost, or is she just another liar? That was the question being posed.
You want me to vote?
Yeah, you guys want to vote on that?
She's compromised.
Okay, so lost.
I don't think she's any of it. I think she's compromised and being run by the program.
Expand on being run by the program.
I think she's being influenced by higher powers that be that are trying to lead the collective astray.
Oh.
I think she can be easily influenced and mind controlled by her background, the people that she's in, even investing in the money, all of that things. So as a spiritual new earth leader that she claims to be, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we are here to awaken the collective.
Right.
Awakening the collective also means don't do business with people like Disney.
Yeah. With Disney
and Hulu.
Right.
And to get on Hulu, and I'll speak on this because it's been an uproar this week, the spiritual coaching industry. If you are going to get on a podcast or a show like Hulu, you bet your fucking ass that you propositioned to be documented. So that's all I got to say on that. I know she's mentioned that she didn't really want to step in this role. Her human design says otherwise. I feel like she's completely living it.
Yeah.
But as a spiritual new earth leader, that's a big thing that we came here to awaken people. That's our top priority mission. She's claiming to be a starseed. She's Arcturian. She knows the drill. If she's exactly what she's claiming to be, she knows the drill. If not, then someone's filling her head with bullshit, and she's not who she says she is. So.
Got you, Samantha.
What do I think?
You come down on any of those, or any of those at all? It was spiritual leader.
My take from it is I've studied a little bit of like cult behavior. I don't know if you guys have heard of the BITE model, but it pretty much goes through like these are behaviors and types of thinking that make something or someone a cult. And some of the things in there that in the documentary, she was kind of showing some unhealthy behaviors of cult mentality and cult thinking. And so to me, that was a turnoff when people, when like a person is very black and white thinking, like their way is the highway, like you have to agree with them. To me, I feel like that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. I feel like a spiritual leader should honor people's free will and, free choice, and be able to say like, I made a mistake, I was wrong, like, you follow what's right for you. And like that's what I really love about human design. It's about empowering yourself, and you are your own guru, and but it kind of seems like, I don't know, I'd have to watch more stuff, but I mean, I've heard a lot of her stuff is like really good and it's helped a lot of people, and like some of the stuff she taught, like it did, some of it really resonated with me, but sometimes it was kind of a turnoff with how she treated some people. And to me, they were kind of red flags and sign of like sick and unhealthy. And so making people dependent on you to try and heal them, right? Like, I don't know. I just,
overzealous teacher that teaches to the extreme to make everybody see their viewpoint. That is the lower expression of that gate 11. My vote.
I feel like she's fulfilling her carnation cross, but she's kind of doing it in an unhealthy way that's toxic. She has a ton of the not self themes of the open centers. What lets you know is that she's not following, the strategy and authority of a reflector. And you can see it's leading to a lot of problems in her life. So I don't know. I just feel like she really would have listened to human design and embodied that. I feel like she wouldn't be running into all these problems that she's having. So
I offered her, I suggested she get read again and really dig into what is that in her, you know.
Dan messaged
I
her.
messaged her twice. I said, "Hey, do you know anything you want to say? And do you want to get read some more?" And then but yeah, my
You
vote.
did invite Teal on the show.
I invited. Yeah, it's like if you want to. I think I invited her. I forget. But no, my take. I don't think she want to come on the show after my take.
No.
You know, maybe she would, but my take on it was all three in spades. In spades, she's a liar. She recognizes the moments that she's just like saying it. She knows that's like, oh my God, I'm not sure, because that's the moments of her rigidity as soon as someone says something. Now the liar is someone who's avoiding their own internal confrontation. And then, and at the same time, lost because she's the leader of her tribe. And it's not just because of that, but it's because she's coming off of that first phase of that 6-line profile. You know, when you have a 6-line in your profile, you've got a rough ride if you don't know what's there. You got 3 parts to your life. The rest of us just have, basically we start, we have a middle, and then we have the second half. And then the spiritual leader. I watched so many of her, I watched a bunch of her like short 10, 15, and 20-minute things about a certain thing. And boy, can she go through a stream of consciousness that is like really helpful. It's like, this is good. This is good. Stick with that, man. Or whatever. And I don't want to tell someone to stick with anything. They have to follow their own path. Her path is designed to have crisis and conflict. So it's designed to have that. And her navigation of that is what will tame that finally into nothing more than occasionally choppy waters. That's where it's supposed to end. And then sooner or later, smooth sailing. So she hasn't got there yet. So that's my deal on Teal.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that was an excellent show. We had a lot of views, a lot of comments. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. As always, please make sure you like and subscribe to the show. Don't miss our Sunday shows at 2 p.m. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time, isn't it? 3 p.m. Eastern time to noon on Pacific Standard Time. And we are covering the human design of children. So if you have children and you are inquiring what their designs are, this is the owner manual that every parent is looking for. Go back to our past episodes. Last week we did.
You need your kids read. You need your kids read. Let's get this work done. That's the work. We need them read.
Yes. So.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Savannah. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Looking forward to it. Talk to you later.